All right, Facebook, we are back live here. It is Wednesday right at noon, and we got a special guest with us today. We got Zach Goodman from MillCreek Commercial. Now, we had Zach on, maybe a month or so ago, and a lot has happened. The biggest news, though, is that you had your first child.
Sure did.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations. A little girl, you said?
Little girl. We named her Jane, and she's perfect, and she likes to sleep during the day and stay awake all night.
Just like a teenager.
Yeah.
So the first time we had you on, Zach, we talked about 1031 exchanges, and I apologize. I thought you were a 1031 exchange intermediary, but you're not. You're actually a commercial real estate agent helping people to place their 1031 exchange funds in properties that you may have listed, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so tell us just like a basic overview of what you're looking for, because it's not your typical commercial real estate agent where you're just selling a property. You're selling a piece of the pie, right?
Yeah, we have specific properties, and we're looking for a specific type of investor. I'll use, let's say, Jack and Sally as an example. They bought their first home in, the 70s for $18. And then they bought a fourplex or something like that. And they've been landlords planning on retiring and selling that fourplex, right? And now it's worth $1 million. And they start figuring out the sales process, and they realize that they're going to be paying their capital gains taxes, their depreciation recapture, and their $1 million that they thought they're getting is now 750, which feels like they're getting robbed, right? So they're what's that?
But you have a way that they can keep that extra 300 as well.
Hey, thanks for setting me up. Yeah. So really how we can help them is the 1031 exchange is step one, which basically you trade one property for the other, or you have a qualified intermediary receive the funds when you sell, and then within 180 days you buy a new property, and then you don't have to pay capital gains taxes on it. So now we've solved the problem where their money's gone. So now they've got $1 million that they can spend again, but it has to go into real estate. And so what I do is I buy properties that are triple net leased. So that means the tenant, so in this case, Dollar Tree. I like Dollar Tree. They pay for the property insurance, property taxes, and maintenance. So totally passive for the landlord. But these properties are worth, $2-3 million. So still not really affordable for most people. So what we do is we sell pieces of the property to investors, and that's called the TIC, tenant in common. And that's where we cut up the pie. So Jack and Sally come to me and they say, I've got $1 million. And I say, great. And I give them a third of the property. And so it's not like a third of the floor plan. It's just the deed says they own 30%. So every month when Family Dollar Tree pays their rent, the Bob and Sally, they receive a third of the rent. And eventually I'll sell the entire property, and then MillCreek, my fund, we back off, we let it go, and then they hold it for generally until they die. We talked about drop till you swap last time. That's they'll buy it with their trust. So then when they die, it'll step up in basis, and their kids can either take the property or they can sell it and not pay taxes on it.
Okay, so with a 1031 exchange, the thing that is the most challenging to most investors, when they go to sell, they got this time frame. They have to sell theirs and identify something within 6 months.
Yeah.
So that becomes very difficult, because to do your due diligence on a decent commercial property, that's just not necessarily enough time all the time. Or there's not enough inventory out there to make that happen.
Yeah.
Running into, some challenges there. So what you're doing is you've already got these properties purchased. and you're selling off that chunk. So at any point, somebody could call you and say, hey, I got $100,000. I want to buy a chunk of one of these properties. They can do that, and they're going to still fall within that time frame.
Exactly. Yeah, so they'll have 45 days to identify, 180 total to close. And I can do it in 2 weeks. So even if you're on day 44, 43, give me a call. Yeah.
Right. And haven't found the property or.
Yeah. Give me a call and I'll say, yep, we'll set it up. And we can fill out a PSA that day, and you can have it in 2 weeks and start receiving rent the next month.
So we had a question posted by Facebook, and they said, fascinating. First time I've heard of this option. Why is this the first time I've heard of this option?
They've never met Zach?
Yeah. I'm not sending out enough emails, I guess.
But this has been around for, I mean, you're basically just handling a 1031 exchange, but you're putting it into a bigger pie.
Yeah. I mean, the 1031 exchange has been around since the 1920s. Tenant in common structure has been around since 1600s in England. Started with farmers farming the land that they couldn't all afford to buy together. So, I mean, the principles have been around forever. What we're doing, combining the two, has been around since 2017. That's when we started, and I'm not aware of anyone doing exactly what we do.
Do you have any kind of
on Facebook in that question? They're not the only one. I don't think anybody else except for Zach on this call understood this prior to our last conversation, because
right.
That's out there to everybody. But that's what we're trying to do with this Facebook page is we learn, we want to pass that information along to our investors, and if you so happen to be in this situation, you'll benefit from it, and we can help you through that transaction, get you up with Zach, and make that purchase possible, where you don't have to buy a whole property, you're just buying that chunk. Now, my next question though is, what's the exit strategy on this? Because it's one thing to buy it, but what if I need to sell someday?
Yeah. So I should probably start by saying, of the 150, 200 people we've helped do this in the past 5-6 years, I think 4 or 5 have ended up selling their interest. So it's not common. This is definitely your kind of the final resting. I shouldn't say it like that, but this is your.
I'm almost there. It's okay.
This is your retirement generally. But if you do want to sell, it's possible. And it looks like this. You have a third of Family Dollar Tree, and it's worth $1 million. You decide to sell. First, we just ask that you give the option. Well, we require that you give a first right of refusal to the other owners. So we just send out an email and say, hey, someone's selling $1 million worth of this same building you're in. Anyone else interested in buying? And if they're interested in buying, you're good. We won't, I mean, there'll be closing costs, but I won't, take a commission or anything. If none of the current occupants or building owners want to buy it, then I'll send out an email to all my current investors. Same thing. If any of them want to buy it, I won't charge a commission or listing fee or anything like that. If you've gone this far and no one wants to buy it, then yeah, I can list it on my website. We've got a pretty good platform. I would charge a listing fee, 6%. Or you could find your own broker to also sell it, but they'd also probably sell 6%. I say that I could sell it better than they could because this is all I sell. But you can do whatever you want with it. You own the property.
Well,
go ahead, please.
Asking her, what kind of returns are we looking at on this?
Yeah, so we measure in cap rate because we're not planning on taking advantage of appreciation or anything like that. So this is just the income it generates. And right now I'm at about 6%. So for every $1 million you invest, you're going to get 60 grand a year.
Okay. Anybody else have any stand out?
No, you said you don't use appreciation. How long is the usual holding period on these?
So the leases are all long term, generally 15 years plus a couple options to extend. So generally this is a long term, 20, 30 years.
So you're looking for those 10-year leases before you even buy the property. And then they have extension clauses on them. So as an investor, you can feel comfortable that in 2 years, that tenant's not going anywhere.
Exactly. And thanks for bringing that up. That's what we focus on. We're trying to make it as secure as possible, because
Sure.
this is your retirement. You know, we don't want to gamble it.
Right.
Are there any regular maintenance fees for the investors?
So we do have a lease administrator who receives the big check, divides it up, and she handles the communication, and she takes 2%. Other than that,
Okay.
Nothing.
So basically a 2% property management if you're buying another property.
Exactly.
But
Okay.
even with being paid, you're still getting 6%. So that's not really
Right.
relevant.
Yeah, it's minimal.
Okay. It's pretty awesome. I mean, to be able to go out and get a property identified with, at the last minute, especially if you're really struggling to find a place to put your 1031 exchange, this is a great solution. I know there's one other solution out there where you can buy into some type of government secure. What do you understand what I'm talking about?
I think you're thinking of DSTs, Delaware
Yeah.
Statutory Trust. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's maybe I should mention. So we're not a DST. I guess you could say we compete against them. Couple differences. They can also receive 1031 funds. So they're an option if you do have 1031 money. They can also receive debt. So if there's five owners on this property, you can't come in with debt. Firstly, because it would be hard to find a bank who would loan on a fifth of a property. But secondly, we don't want to jeopardize all the other investments. So I only take cash.
Debt. You're talking about somebody using financing to purchase this.
Financing. Exactly. Yeah. DSTs, they'll allow you to come in with debt. So a DST is a trust. They own, say, an apartment complex, and it's worth $50 million, and it's leveraged, maybe 15, 20, 30 of that is leverage. And so when you come in needing to replace some of your replacement debt that we talked about last time, they can assign some of it to you. So if I come in with $500,000 in cash and I need to replace $500,000 in debt, they would sell me $1 million worth of property. $500,000 of it they would allocate to their debt, $500,000 to their assets. So it is kind of tricky. I don't know as much about them because I don't sell them, but
Okay.
they're an option. The DST sponsor is going to be taking, I think 3 to 4% is their management fee, and generally the returns are lower than what I'm offering. So generally, that's all I have to say.
No, sure,
but it's a similar, but it's a competitor. Yeah.
Well, when I've searched looking for this, DST was the only quick band-aid, or not even band-aid, a tourniquet to place on a situation if they were running out of time to get the 1030 exchange money placed somewhere. With you, it's just different feel that buying a property that has longevity.
Yeah.
Consistent.
And that's DSTs as well. Usually they're going to require you to sell after 5 or 7 years because they're moving.
Okay.
And that's kind of what we're trying to solve too, is that longevity issue.
Are Dollar Trees the only thing you invest in?
No, so triple net is actually, let me tell you a little bit about our requirements. We need 3 of the 4. It needs to be triple net. So tenants responsible for insurance, taxes, property maintenance. It needs to be a single tenant, so no strip malls. It needs to be a corporate guaranteed lease. So even if Dollar Tree decides to vacate, the corporation still has to pay the remaining of the lease, even if they're not occupying the building anymore. And I lost my train of thought. I was talking about 3. Anyway, basically that's what it's gonna look like. So we have some medical properties that we like to sell, kind of surgical centers, guaranteed by a regional healthcare provider. We're doing some developing now in Utah for some franchise restaurants that are a similar situation. And then every once in a while we'll have a CVS or a Walgreens. So that's generally big name companies all over. and we'll build for them.
Is there ever a time you just simply don't have a property available for somebody to buy into? Has that been a problem that you've had?
During COVID, we
okay.
were, yeah, it was rough.
Okay.
We'd sell out in a week, and yeah, you'd come in. Right now, we've got pretty good inventory, and we have a strong pipeline, so
good.
Not really a problem anymore.
And if somebody wants to, it doesn't have to be a 1031. If somebody has money to invest and they wanted to invest, you have a minimum requirement, right?
I say $100,000, just because the fund, the seller, will cover closing costs if it's $100,000 or greater. I've sold lower. I've gone down to 50, 40 grand, but at that point, the buyer is covering closing costs, and that's going to start to mess with the numbers. So it won't be as cut and dry.
Okay.
I should also mention the IRS limits tenant in common agreements to 35 owners. So if it's a $1 million property, I can't sell you less than 1/35 of it, just because we might have too many investors for the property. But generally 100,000, and I can go lower if you talk to me.
Okay. Very good. This is
Something
else. Is awesome.
Thanks. Yeah. Something else that you kind of alluded to is it's not all 1031 money. I also talk with a lot of self-directed IRA investors. I'm actually working with one right now. We're a really great play for them too.
Okay.
All right. Well, we are approaching that 20-minute mark, and we try to keep these right at the 20 minutes. So, Zach, we want to thank you again for joining us today and setting the record straight on what you actually did. And congratulations on that baby. And
thank you.
You go get some rest this afternoon.
I'll go take a nap.
Right.
Zach, what's your website? Where do I go to do a little more research on your company?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. My website is millcreekcommercial.com.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll throw that into the chat and stuff as well. Zach is a member of our investor page, so he can by all means jump onto the video itself and put his contact information there as well.
Totally.
All right.
Fantastic.
I go ahead and shut it down. And again, Zach, we thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good to talk again.
Thanks, Zach. Congrats.
Thanks.
Good luck.